Royal Birkdale on the northwest coast of England, the final hole of the 2026 Open Championship. 170 yards to the pin on the hardest hole anyone had played all week, and standing over his ball is a 39-year-old New Zealander with the Claret Jug hanging on a single swing. For most of the golf world, this man had always been an afterthought. 28 major championships in his career, and not one top 10 finish to show for any of them. He was good enough to belong on the biggest stages, but never quite good enough to win on them. And yet, here he was, on the 72nd hole of the Open, about to do something no golfer from his country had managed in more than 60 years. This is the story of Ryan Fox, the journeyman who stunned the entire golf world. To understand how improbable that moment really was, you have to go back to the beginning and to a family that had already produced champions, just in different sports. Ryan Fox was born in Auckland, New Zealand, into something close to sporting royalty. His father is Grant Fox, a legend of the All Blacks, the man whose kicking helped win the very first Rugby World Cup in 1987. On his mother's side, his grandfather, Merv Wallace, had been a celebrated first-class cricketer. In a household like that, greatness wasn't a distant dream. It was practically the family business. But here's the part that makes Ryan's story so strange. He didn't grow up obsessed with golf. He barely even played it. He was a cricketer first, and a talented one, and he didn't take golf seriously until he was already 17 years old. At the age when most future professionals have been grinding for a decade, Ryan Fox was only just picking up a club with any real intent. He turned professional at 25, which in golf is remarkably late. The tours are full of prodigies who turned pro at 20 or 21, already hardened by years of elite competition. Fox was playing catch-up from his very first day as a pro, and for a long time, it did not go well. By the end of only his second season, the money had nearly run out. He was grinding on the smaller satellite tours, chasing modest paychecks from one week to the next, watching his bank balance shrink with every missed cut. He came genuinely close to walking away from the game for good, and it's worth sitting with that for a moment, because there's a version of this story where Ryan Fox quits right here. He takes a normal job, tells people he gave it an honest try, and the Claret Jug ends up in somebody else's hands. What kept him going wasn't a swing change or a new coach or a sponsor. It was a single conversation with his father. Grant Fox had lived the athlete's life at the highest level, so he understood what it took and what it cost. The advice he gave his son wasn't some complicated technical fix. It was about patience, about trusting that the work would eventually meet the results, even during the long stretches when there was no evidence of it at all. So Ryan stayed. He kept grinding on the Challenge Tour, golf's equivalent of the minor leagues. The endless drives between events, the cheap roadside hotels, the cut lines that decided whether a week paid the bills or didn't. Slowly, through his late 20s and into his early 30s, something began to click. He earned his way up to the DP World Tour, the top circuit in European golf. And once he arrived, Ryan Fox wasted no time proving that he could win. And win he did. The titles started to come one after another across Europe and beyond. He became known for those enormous booming drives, the kind that made him one of the longest hitters in any field he teed it up in. In 2022, he put together one of the finest seasons of anyone on the DP World Tour, climbing the world rankings and cashing the biggest checks of his life. He finally looked like the player his talent had always promised. By any reasonable measure, Ryan Fox had made it. He was a proven winner, he was financially secure, and he was ranked among the best golfers on the planet. But there was one shelf in the trophy cabinet that refused to fill, and it was the most important one of all. Because in the 4 tournaments that truly define a golfer's legacy, the major championships, Ryan Fox remained almost completely invisible. And the numbers behind that were brutal, the kind that follow a player around for years. 28 major starts, and not one top 10 finish to show for any of them. He would arrive at the Masters, the PGA Championship, the U.S. Open, the Open itself, the 4 biggest weeks of the year, and something would always go wrong. A poor opening round that buried him, a missed cut that sent him home early, a quiet weekend fade, just as the pressure turned all the way up. In the sport's biggest moments, the man who could win almost anywhere else simply couldn't get it done. And in golf, that kind of record hardens into a reputation. The really good player who just can't win the big one. There were painful near misses too, like the 2023 BMW PGA Championship, where he battled to the very end before losing in a playoff. Close once again, but close doesn't get your name on a trophy. And by his late 30s, the window most players only dream of was quietly starting to close. And here's the thing that makes Ryan Fox so different from almost everyone else. At the age when most careers are winding down, his was only just shifting into a higher gear. He didn't even make his full move to the PGA Tour, the strongest circuit in the world, until he was 37, arriving as a rookie in effect at an age when plenty of players are starting to think about the senior tour. And instead of being swallowed up by it, he broke through. In 2025, deep into his 30s, Ryan Fox finally won on American soil. And not just once, but twice in a single season. Almost overnight, the journeyman had become one of the hottest players in the game. And yet, even with all that momentum behind him, the major still stayed just out of his reach. Which brings us to a windswept links course on the northwest coast of England in July of 2026, Royal Birkdale. For the first 3 days of that Open, the championship belonged to other men. Sam Burns, one of the finest players America had to offer, was out in front, setting the pace. The rest of the leaderboard was stacked with stars. Scotty Scheffler, the defending champion, right in the thick of it. Tommy Fleetwood, chasing the home win an entire nation was desperate to see. Cameron Young, long overdue a breakthrough of his own. Ryan Fox was somewhere in the mix, but he wasn't the story anyone was telling, not yet. And then on Saturday, he did something extraordinary. He went out and shot a 62, a round that tied the lowest score ever posted in the history of major championship golf. 8 birdies, flawless, fearless, relentless golf. And just like that, the afterthought was right there in the fight, 2 shots behind Sam Burns heading into Sunday, with the whole tournament suddenly opening up in front of him. Now, championship Sunday at an Open is a particular kind of pressure, unlike anything else in the sport. The wind comes howling in off the Irish Sea. The thick links rough swallows golf balls whole. And on this Sunday, one by one, the contenders began to crack. Sam Burns, the overnight leader, unraveled almost immediately, dropping shots at the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th. His 2-shot cushion was gone before the round had barely begun, and then he went cold, failing to make a single birdie across his final 12 holes. Suddenly, the lead was just sitting there, waiting for anyone brave enough to take it. Siwoo Kim grabbed hold of it, climbing all the way to the top before 3 bogeys on the back 9 dropped him out of contention. Tommy Fleetwood, carrying the hopes of a whole country, clawed his way to within a single shot, and then made 3 straight bogeys that quietly broke a nation's heart. The door was wide open now. The only question left was who would finally walk through it. And then, from well back in the field, Cameron Young came storming out of nowhere. He fired a blistering 64, 7 shots better than where he'd started the day, posting a clubhouse number and all but daring the leaders to catch him. But out on the course, Ryan Fox had quietly found another gear. With just 6 holes to play, the journeyman finally stopped waiting for permission. He birdied the 12th, he birdied the 14th, and then he reached the 15th, the hole he would later call the most pivotal of his entire life. His ball had settled into a nasty lie down in a greenside bunker, exactly the kind of shot that ends championships on the spot. Fox stared it down, took a breath, and somehow saved his par, keeping his round and his lifelong dream alive. 1 hole later, at the 16th, he rolled in another birdie. And for the first time all week, Ryan Fox held the outright lead of the Open Championship. But golf is rarely that kind. Cameron Young, sitting in the clubhouse at 9 under par, had made a bogey of his own at the last, leaving the smallest possible margin for error. Fox now needed to finish the job on the 72nd and final hole. The 18th at Royal Birkdale had played as the hardest hole on the entire course all week. A brutal, unforgiving finish that was averaging well over par. One mistake here, and everything he'd built over 20 long years would slip through his fingers in front of the watching world. From 170 yards out, Ryan Fox stepped up and pured his approach. The swing of a man with nothing left to fear, leaving himself just 12 feet for the championship. 12 feet between a lifetime of nearly and forever. He read the putt. He settled over it, and he rolled it dead center into the middle of the cup. Birdie, the Open Championship, by a single stroke.
Ryan Fox had done it at 39 years old in his 29th major start. The journeyman was the champion golfer of the year. He had become the first New Zealander to win the Open since the legendary Bob Charles, all the way back in 1963, a wait of more than 6 full decades. An entire country had held its breath for that long, and in the end it was Ryan Fox, the late bloomer, the near quitter, the man with a whole career full of almosts, who finally ended the drought. Surreal was the word he reached for afterward. It's something you dream of. And then he said something that told you everything about how far he had come. If you'd have given me my career up till yesterday, he admitted, I'd have jumped at that.
Think for a moment about what that sentence really means. Here was a man who had just won a major championship, the absolute pinnacle of his entire sport, calmly saying that even without it, the career he had fought so hard to build would already have been enough. That is not the mindset of a prodigy who had everything handed to him early. That is the mindset of someone who very nearly lost it all and never once forgot how close he'd come to the edge. Ryan Fox's story simply isn't the one we usually tell about our champions. There was no teenage phenomenon, no smooth and effortless rise straight to the top. Instead, there was a late start, an almost empty bank account, a father's quiet patience, and 20 long years of showing up to work when the results were giving him every reason to stop. The golf world had spent a decade calling him a journeyman, as if that word were a ceiling. At Royal Birkdale, Ryan Fox took that word and he turned it into a badge of honor. The truly great players always seem to make it look inevitable. Ryan Fox is a reminder that it almost never is, that behind every trophy lifted into the air on a Sunday evening, there can be decades of private doubt, of gut-wrenching near misses, of the kind of quiet perseverance that nobody claps for until the very end. He didn't stun the golf world because he finally got lucky. He stunned it because he simply outlasted it. 28 majors of waiting and one perfect Sunday afternoon to make every last bit of it worthwhile. The journeyman, at long last, a champion. Thanks for watching. And if this story stayed with you the way it stayed with me, there are plenty more legends of the game waiting for you right here.